Hello, everyone, and welcome to our VAC Roundtable number 94. We are pleasantly joined by a gentleman who's doing what he can to help veterans. And we always appreciate those that are going the distance for us. So we are welcoming Mr. James Keys. He's a founder of an organization called the Classics Events, and he basically helps out veterans by putting together sponsorships through events. And it seems that golf is one of the mainstays. So, as we continue our series and discussions, we want to welcome Mr. Keys for joining us tonight. So, thank you, James, for joining us, and we're going to get right into it. This question is kind of multi-level. The first question is, how did you originally come to cannabis? So, in the sense that, how did you first originally hear about it? When did you get turned on, and when did you realize it was going to become some of your life's work? So, welcome, Mr. Keys.
I really appreciate everybody's time and for having me and the mission you guys do. And like you said, what I can do to contribute through events and help support our industry, veterans. And, we'll get into more of it with people with brain injuries and things like that. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Um, Kind of jumping back in time, when I was younger, young teen, um, interest in cannabis, not necessarily consumption, more of a plant. Had friends, parents who had grown out in the fields in Ohio, if you will, hills. Popped a few seeds, got nowhere. But then when I was 18, I got some more and I popped some. And I grew my first plant on a golf course that I live by. And so that was and I had consumed by that point, 18 roughly. Um, but I really liked after that first, if you will, harvest. It was literally just the tiniest plant with a bud that I hung up in my dorm room and got like a joint out of. But after that, I really liked the cultivation aspect in the plant. I got a shitty 400 watt light that was like 1,000 degrees, 5 gallon buckets from Home Depot that were orange and drilled holes in them and did that. And that was my first indoor harvest. And I got like a gym light that was that was like the big square one that like fell off a truck and uh, got a harvest with that in Ohio. G13 was big back then. This is like 25, 2006, 2005, 6, 7. And and then and then I got to go to the grocery store and I got the hooded lights and everything. So I had like 5 HPSs and an MH and had a nice little setup when I was in college and really, it connected with the plant by spending thousands and thousands of hours in a house full of a house full of girls, essentially, right? Female plants and taking care of them and tending to them. And I enjoyed that process. So I stopped, you know, graduated college and got a job in quality management, which was miserable. But I was like, there's going to be a need for that in cannabis because a lot of friends that I grew with in Ohio moved to Michigan, to Ypsi, or moved to Cali, or moved to Colorado. Right now, it's like 2009, and but I didn't do that because I also started having kids then in 2009. So then I was like, I don't really like this quality management stuff. I really want to get, something with cannabis. And I believe that will be a thing. I believe QMS, GMP, ISO standards will be a thing. So that was my foray into the professional side where I went to get my MBA. I wrote everything about submitting to ANSI for cannabis quality management standards and essentially did that, which was rejected by them in around 2011. So that was my foray into if you will, the professional side, and basically, been doing some licensing consulting, which we'll get into later and all that. But so it all started back then with a few seeds, but really my attachment came at the cultivation through college indoors and growing from a 400 to a few thousands and a mom room and a clone room and a flower room and dry. I mean, just the whole process, and not an industrial scale, but back then a decent scale, to certainly connect and learn about it.
Right on. Well, thank you for taking that step and taking that journey. It's quite a journey that you took. Needless to say, it's definitely not the regular route, but I definitely understand the figuring out and trying to figure out how to grow a plant all of a sudden, which is, I think, is a challenge that many of us come to. But good on you for throwing your feet into the water. Next question was going to come from Council Member Nate Landau. So, Council Member Landau, you're recognized.
Well, James, thank you for being here. When I met you at Meadowlands in 2021, right away, your story was very unique, and I'm so glad that it become full circle. We get to interview you. My question for you is, you built the classic events into a national series of high-end golf and networking experience. What inspired you to bring cannabis industry leaders together in this particular format? Thank you.
Yeah, and Nate, we really appreciate you making it all happen, really, in the introduction. And Meadowlands was, one of those awesome experiences in this industry to do something unique and connect with people professionally and personally. So yeah, it's great to full circle and be here. And to answer that, like back to obviously what I was talking about with the golf course, but so I grew my first plant on a golf course, and some of what we'll get into here too is like I couldn't work in Ohio essentially, right? Like there was no market here until recently. I mean, there was a medical market that was growing, but the first 10 years there was really nothing. So I had gone to a lot of places. So anyway, when we legalized recreation here, recreationally, I knew I wanted to rent that golf course and throw a huge event. That was my goal, period. And like I just wanted to kind of christen that place and put all that to bed, if you will. So that's what I did, and it was really successful. Uh, but I believe that for a number of reasons it would be. I think there's a combination of business gets done on the golf course is an old saying. It's certainly, especially in the olden days, but served especially the upper echelon or business judges, lawyers, decision makers in that sense, right? Nowadays, it's opened up a lot more, which is awesome for us in a number of ways. It's much more inviting and communal. But the other part of golf courses is it's outdoor recreation. And in cannabis, I'm sick of sick of going to warehouses, sick of being in like the back door and it's still being old school in ways where like people would get in trouble or you'd have to, all congregate out back in the snow and still smoking. And I mean, there's a beauty aspect to that, don't get me wrong. But in the sense that for the whole event and experience for guests and professionalism and helping elevate our industry, to people who do make decisions and two doors that are hard to get open and to an image that is ingrained right or wrong in people's brains. Golf from a societal and a just luxury venue standpoint, it's nice to break into that for our industry. Because there have been other golf events, but I thought we try to do more than just golf too. Like we have a ton of depending on venue, but we have a ton of different things we try to do. Like in the clubhouse for the first classic, we had 33 speakers, panels from 9 to 5. We had women's panels for like 3 different ones during the day, like social impact panels. We had state legislature, like representatives speak, county commissioner. Like we tried to do really good educational, try to do impact, try to bring people in. The clubhouse, we had a lot of booths around there that were again like social impact booths or local activists and people like that in the clubhouse too. We had our people's pavilion outside with glass blowing and plants and mushroom blocks, non-psychedelic like lion's manes, trumpets, things like that as centerpieces. We had like a local guy who's in the industry but chef making treats in the VIP that he paired with like local terpene profiles, and you got the food from farmers markets. And so like we tried to make it as much as it's a country club, which it is, right? We do really nice venues, but also communal, bringing people together. And then golf and cannabis are perfect. Like you're out on a course driving a little car around for 4 hours, smoking weed and having fun. That's literally what it is. So it's a perfect mix for sport, cannabis, networking, luxury. I think all of those things blend very well. And that's what my vision was. And I think we're starting to prove that and show that and find traction.
And it's a great way to cross paths with the straight world, right? In the sense of, golf is always usually associated with, alcohol. It's not usually associated with. But I agree. That's years ago, I used to have a cycling team. We were the first cannabis cycling team in the United States. And I agree with you. I got tired of meeting people while they were sick. I wanted to meet people when they were healthy. You know what I'm saying? And it was a sport I have found is a great way to crack that door as well as those glass ceilings because, cannabis has been so underground and it's been amazing how even though it crosses every social and economic boundary, it still carries a social stigma, right? That, is why, you don't see cannabis and golfing necessarily tied together. But it warms the cockles of my heart that it does because back in the day, we did fundraisers as well for a charity that was a school for the deaf, and we would hold sometimes. They would hold a golf outing, and that was a way for us to cross paths with people in the normal world who were and have a lot of questions about cannabis because and are necessarily they're afraid to talk about it because of the stigma or how it is at work, et cetera, et cetera. They're not necessarily in a comfortable place. So, to find and then create that area and dispel those stigmas is something that we definitely need more of. So I commend you on your work, Mr. Keys. Next up will be Council Member Mike Davis.
Uh, yeah. Hey, James. So, with over 20 years in cultivation, compliance, and licensing, how has your hands-on industry experience shaped the way you design and host your events?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And I love that question, which I think put a little color on, but like as you guys know, and people who have been, I wouldn't even say in the industry, people who have been passionate about the plant and the business side, I think does matter somewhat here. But like really just you touched on the point of like it crosses all barriers, right? And if you've been smoking, essentially, if you've been smoking weed and doing your thing for 20 plus 30 years, it's like you've seen that firsthand, right? Like you've bought sacks here, you've smoked with people that you've never even thought you met, you've you've done desperate things to smoke, you've had more than you could ever have, you've experienced it all, right? And like I think that plays into what I'm trying to do with the events is and make it. There certainly has to be an economic point to this. Like it costs money to put it on, and so I have to find a mechanism to fund that slash try to do impact and make a difference on the back end of that. But given that we cover that and we do our best there, we have an awesome venue that's freaking huge that has a ton of space usually and unused space and gardens and da 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 da, right? And patios and cafes and this room and that room and all this stuff, right? Because it's rich people, nice venues. So like again, welcome the community in and knowing who that is, maybe who and if you don't, I'm not saying I know everyone's intentions and the best all the time, but like real recognize real, right? Like people who have do the right work, who have the right vibe, who are in the community, like you're definitely invited to one of these events because of the impact you make. Like I always make a point of that, especially in Ohio, when I worked with people who were activists, and I'm like, just tell me who needs to be there, right? Because like we're doing this and they've already put in the money, essentially. They've already put in the work. So like this is to bring everybody in, hopefully. And there might have to be a limit to that. Again, especially the first one. We almost got the fire department called. I mean, we were cars everywhere, and like it was one of the biggest events they ever had there. I loved it. Was so awesome for the community to show up like that. And in Cali, same deal. Like we did one at a really nice place, Monarch Beach in Dana Point, and the LA community showed up like crazy, and it was a packed event. That was just a lot of fun. So I think that's part of. I don't know if that answered your question well, but it's that been in this a long time, seen a lot of people, had a lot of interactions from business to both sides of the table to everything, and like I think that that gives a certain perspective of like, well, what is a cannabis event? Who is cannabis? I mean, that's we could have weekly meetings on who and what is cannabis, right? For even what words we're using, indefinitely. So it takes a certain understanding of that. I think just through what do they say, like swimming through or being in the ocean, like being a part of it. So hopefully it helps us put on really good events and have really good people there, have the right people there, have the right vibe.
Councilmember Landaz, got to follow up.
And so you touched on a bit about striking the balance about having the activists there, but these events cost money and everything. And now that you've done a bunch of them, how do you strike that balance that getting the people that have done the work, but you have to look to the future of bringing the people that are going to be the large MSOs that are going to have a lot of influence on the industry? How do you balance the two of having both kinds of people at the event?
Yeah, and it's definitely an attempt, right? And I think we're doing a good job of it. I know through my market research and looking at the benchmarks of other events and especially golf ones, I think some had missed it in the past, and just trying to learn from everything, right? So I think one of the ways we do it, especially one of the ways I try to do it, especially is partner with people um, in a number of ways. So like what I mean by that is like in Ohio, I've got activists who they know who the activists are. They're at the state house. I can't be everywhere at once and don't expect myself to, and like let the expert be the expert. So like working with that person to say, hey man, who should be speaking, who should be there, you know, helping them own that piece is huge for me too, because again, I can't do it all. And I don't know everything. Half the time I always say I have no idea what I'm doing. So like take that for take my answer for what it is. But like that's a big piece. I think the other is the focus on that's the beauty of a large venue in golf too, though, is like we have golf to sell, we have sponsorships to sell, we have those things, but we also have in Ohio, we had speakers and we had some brand booths around there. And again, those I keep at usually $420 a booth. If you don't have that and you're in the community and you're doing stuff, I'm probably not going to charge you, but I can't give a million away. But like, you know what I mean? I build that room out especially for that reason. We had like live artist painting in Vegas on hemp canvas and like bringing that aspect, like the artist and the DJ, and then inviting people in that are general admission, and especially in Vegas or maybe are there uh, that have again been impactful or an influencer in some way or doing something right, like welcoming them in to experience it without the golf. So we try to give that to help find that balance. And then something I think I'm learning, hopefully I'm learning is brands. Like if MSOs, a lot of them will spend money, maybe. Certainly haven't gotten to write crazy big checks yet, but like what I see is some of them spend money and their activation is what it is. But then you'll see a hotter, younger, maybe if you will, like brand spend way less money and make way more of an impact because they got a vibe, right? They understand what they're doing with that. So I think that's huge too. Is the the brand is somewhat of a living, breathing entity, right? So like the ones who have that let that show and come out, and then some of the dollar ones are what they are. That's okay.
Right on. Great points. Next up will be Council Member Marilyn Mathry.
Hi, sorry I'm late, and sorry, James, I hadn't met you earlier. Anyway, question. My name is Marilyn Mathry. I'm Navy Nurse Corps, old Vietnam era, so a long time ago. But as you're talking, running patients out of time, it's like, yes, I need to talk to you a lot more. But anyway, your reputation as a trusted connector is central to your work. So what do you think makes a truly effective connector in such a fast-changing industry? And this is information needed by the older folks here, especially.
Man, I appreciate that, and thanks for being here too, and taking the time to even ask and be curious about it. I mean, I hope I can provide some insight from my perspective, because I don't know the exact answer or the right recipe. I certainly haven't figured it all out, but like, let experts I think, again, being in the weeds of things helps a little bit. I know we're all probably more trusting than we, as an industry, certainly, but as individuals, probably part of just cannabis, right? Probably more trusting than we should be, or more forgiving, or more welcoming. I don't know what the right word is, but there's certainly in the connecting side. I'm a sponge personally. I like to absorb things from information, right, from people, and like absorb things from like a monkey see, monkey do type perspective. And so like when I did the standards, or even with the kind of what I was saying about the experts helping me build a classic, is like, if I really believe in somebody or what they're doing, or that's they're king of that castle, whatever that is, and let's work together. Let's benefit each other, right? Like, you do your thing, I'm doing my thing here. If there's some sort of crossover there, great. If there's not, I probably, in my opinion, know another expert over here who I think's an expert, and try to connect those dots. They're not always going to be right, or they're not always the right fit, but I think that's always been a big piece for me, is like, hey man, I know what I know, and it's not a whole lot. But like, I think that person knows a shit ton about that, and that person knows a lot about that. And like, either trying to connect them, or suggesting, or hoping to work, and knowing that I've got at least that resource on that side, I think's an expert. So a lot of it has been that is aces in their places, is a saying I heard a long time ago, and I think is very true.
No, connecting, as well as, intergenerational connections are key, because some of us old school, we lose our abilities and try to figure out new creative ways, as well as outreach more than anything, right? And yeah, I think what you've been able to accomplish and what you're accomplishing is a successful route that's been done in other places, but has not necessarily been transcended into the cannabis space as well as you've been able to do it. So congratulations on doing that. Next up is Councilmember Michael Crowitz. Mike, you're up.
Thanks, Etienne. Yeah, I apologize, as Mary Lynn did, for being so late here. Welcome aboard, and I appreciate you coming in. It's been a little bit of a challenge here in this time of year, as well as with all our trips and stuff, and as well as your personal schedule. So I'm glad that we were able to pull this together, and it's good to see you. So my question is, the classic events aren't just about networking. They also spotlight philanthropy. So why was raising awareness and support for brain health research such an important cause for you personally?
Yeah, Mike, again, I appreciate it, man, and glad we could do this at the right, when it all came together. And thanks everybody for being here. And the the classics, we kind of got into the back end of it, of like my history with cannabis, which I guess I left out this part. There's a lot of parts, and what it has to do with this, right? So the brain tumor. Well, so I had a brain tumor 6 years ago, almost 7, and so I was in, I've been in cannabis my not whole life, but you know what I mean, essentially at that point, half my life. And so it was already a thing that wasn't really like had anything to do with my brain tumor recovery in a way. like it wasn't like I discovered it then or something, I guess is what I'm getting at. But so anyway, I worked down in Colombia for a license holder, helping set up a grow and all of that. So I thought I ate something bad, basically, right? Because I'm dizzy and all this kind of stuff. So I go to the ER and there's something in my brain. It's a brain tumor on my hemangioblastoma on my cerebellum. So I'm like, shit. All right, that makes sense. It feels like it. So kind of at that point, I'm like, can't leave the hospital. So I had, long story short, I had to go get. Actually, they let me go home for like 2 weeks after a few days. The swelling went down or whatever, and I had 4 kids at the time, 4 daughters, and I just had. Well, I didn't have. She had just she had just had the baby in December. This is like May, so it's a new baby. That's one of the reasons I knew to go to the hospital. Was like I don't think I should hold the baby because I think I'm going to drop it or I'm going to fall. And so so I got to go home and I'll go back and I have 2 brain surgeries. I wake up, there's like 60 staples in the back of my head. There's like a tube out of my skull here for pressure. There's like a tube in my neck, which this is like neuro ICU. It takes a few days to even know like what is going on. And I was like, what's going on essentially? And I'm like, what is this one for? And they're like, oh, that's so we can put drugs in you that go like straight to your brain in case shit gets crazy. And I'm like, whoa, like what's going in there, And they start listing like this and that and like Michael Jackson type painkiller drugs. I remember thinking like, I remember that name. And I was like, no, dude, I'm good on all that. Like, what do I need? And got it down to like 3. And I had my buddy bring me edibles and aromatherapy in the room and just, and I just to have a different kind of mindset of like, cool, like how do I get out of here? And so I just did that and then like got out of there. So I feel like I'm going on somewhat of a tangent, but that was what happened with the brain tumor. And I used cannabis in that time frame. So got back home and the crazy part of that story is my son was born a year later on the same hospital, same day from the brain tumor. So diagnosis. So that was really cool. So anyway, that has a special, obviously, part to my story. And I have a giant scar on the back of my head. So like that's also good. Play the hand you're dealt, right? So like my thought is you're kind of seeing, I think, the story form here in my head. It's like, all right, I grew my first plant on a golf course. We're about to legalize in Ohio. I've been doing this around the country, not around the world, but essentially all over for a while. I really want to throw an event at that course. I think golf is hot, right? This is like 3 years ago, let's say. And I've been thinking about it don't get me wrong, for a while. I wanted to buy the place. That was my ultimate goal. Didn't quite get there. And then so that was kind of the motivation of all this to create the classic was like we can do something good while connecting the industry, while breaking barriers, while bringing people outdoors for sport and cannabis, which is its own kind of thing, while moving the industry forward, while celebrating Ohio. Like it just checked all these boxes, and it was like it was the right recipe for like this is cool, like this is going to be awesome. And then like hopefully that brings 2 things, like the right people in the room, which is how you can do things, raise money and make an impact that way, and then bring awareness around like just from I can walk and talk and tell my story. That's probably not in most cases normal after 2 brain surgeries. And I got like a screw in the back, missing a piece of my skull and a giant scar and a screw in the back of my head and all this shit that like it isn't normal. So being able to tell that story and share that and bring awareness to a lot of neurological aspects, I would say, with cannabis, and then hopefully have the right activations and ways to raise funds through this, which is what I'm learning how to do, I think. And we're getting there, but we have activations on the course. We have some stuff in the clubhouse. We're trying to learn how to get people involved and then give back and make an impact.
That's quite a personal story, and thank you for sharing that, Michael, as a follow-up.
Yeah, I mean, trying to figure out how to ask this. I have sort of a question in my head, but I'll form it as I ask it. How about that? But basically, um, Veterans Action Council, we've taken great interest in medical use of cannabis, but also it's obvious to anybody that looks at this stuff that and talks to people out there that are using cannabis that that's not a defined line, right? One of our mentors in our movement, one of our veteran leaders, Dennis Perone, famously said that in a world that gives Prozac to kids, all of the cannabis medicine, all the cannabis that's used should be seen as a medicine, and anybody that uses cannabis should be seen in medicine in that light. That's truncated usually to all use of cannabis is medicine. That quote, but nonetheless, we found a lot of the industry seems to be focused on a bigger market, adult rec market, and I wonder I guess a two-part question, like, do you think that they could do that and sort of make it whole by philanthropy? Do you think that's possible? That philanthropy could pick up that end, or even that it's feasible to do that even in a perfect world? And then the second would be like, do you think they get it? Do you think that they now that you can see this from a patient's perspective, do you think that they get it, that they understand what cannabis medicine really is?
A great question. Great questions. I hope I can answer them as concisely as possible. I'm going to start with the second one. Like from a medical standpoint, no and yes. Like no, like when I tried to explain that, which we're used again, we're especially you guys have done things long before I did. It's like you're used to being the crazy person or the one, the stoner hippie or whatever the hell you're getting a bit stereotyped. So like when 12 at least I was older at this point. I'd already been rejected by my community for growing weed, and you know what I mean? Like came from all that, and like I had been through stuff like that. So like when 12 neurologists and doctors in white coats walk in and they're like, "What do you mean?" Da 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 da. And it's like, you're right about what you did. Like you removed a brain tumor. You're very good at that. I appreciate that. My job is to get the hell out of here and to home to my family. This is going to help me do that. Whether you tell me that's true or not, I don't care. Like this is a fact, and this is how I'm going to heal, and this is how I'm going to get home. And like, if you're not on the same page, and like, get the hell out of here. Period. Like, my goal is to get home to my kids. Like, if that's not your goal, what the fuck? Sorry, but like, that shit upset me. So it was easy to passionately speak about that, and then luckily it worked. But it was cool because my neurologist even put, and it was, I didn't just use CBD, but like she even put on my paperwork that next year, like she had like, 5 milligrams CBD daily. Like that was such a huge win for me, like in so many ways. Yeah, that was cool. So like, I think that there's opportunity just like in anything, but there's opportunity to teach and learn on both sides of that table, us and them, or however you want. Not that there's an us and them, but you know what I mean. There's opportunity to learn, and like you know what you know. That's okay. Again, back to the expert thing. Like you know what you know. Like you're good at removing brain tumors. That's awesome. I need one of those right now. But like. I doesn't necessarily mean you know how to get Bo home, or I go by Bo, James Bo Keys. Like it doesn't mean you know how to do that. That's my job. I'm gonna do whatever the hell I got to do to do that. So that was kind of my take from that interaction, which I'm just thinking about a lot right now. But like from the barrier breaking or societal breaking point, yeah, I do. I think there's, especially through the people they care about what they know what they know, they care about what they care about. Sometimes you can get them to care about stuff they don't, and sometimes you get them to know stuff they don't. But like the more causes, things people can relate to, relatable things as an individual, an industry, persona, perception, we can do that are relatable, as opposed, and sometimes they got to be taboo, sometimes they got to be loud, sometimes they got to be that too. But a lot of times, other times, which like I think beverages is a good example of that. I think most of it's dog shit, and like, but a lot of people drink shitty beer, and they drink seltzers, and they drink pop, and they drink, terrible things that aren't any good. And cigarette companies and flavor companies have taught us to do that since we were kids. So I think that it makes a lot of sense of breaking that form factor and familiarity for people is how you break barriers. And that's kind of back to that philanthropy question. Does all this break barriers or welcome more people in or open their eyes? Yes, I think it does when you meet them where they're at, especially that's on the golf course with an Arnold Palmer that happens to have THC in it. This is a great story. Sorry, but like after the Ohio Classic, my uncle he had showed up. He plays golf all the time. My buddy and I were cleaning up the day after, and he's like, "Oh, I found this cooler on the course, and it had these drinks." And we were, but like he had the Arnold Palmer drinks because he was out there, and they were Arnold Palmers, and he got a little stoned, probably, and he certainly didn't seem upset about it. But that was cool. That was fun. So like stuff like that. Like, would he have picked up a joint? Nope. Would he have picked up a vape pen? Nope. Would he have eaten an edible? Fuck no. But did he drink that Arnold Palmer? 3 of them? Yeah, he did. So like I think there's a certain meeting people where they're at, and then people are at a lot of different places that welcomes people in.
And you're finding that way and your way. So good on you. I've got the next question. So, how prevalent is cannabis in regular golfing circles, historically, as well as in this day and age? Are people hiding their use of cannabis at the elite levels?
I would say absolutely. More so now than ever, but yeah, man, that golf has always been the getaway to do what especially rich dudes want to do, right? Whatever that is, probably. So like, yeah, and nowadays, like we got all the hip hop artists playing golf. We got, everybody's playing golf. Golf's hot. So in that sense, so like, I think it's open to, and then the Benjamins and all the jokes and having pen. Obviously, the accessibility of everything makes it more accessible everywhere. So like, hitting a pen is not. It's certainly not. I mean, I remember back in before I did the quality management stuff, I got invited to play golf a few times before I did the cannabis quality management stuff. When I was doing quality management, like food safety standards, got invited to play golf and hitting the old G pens that had the glass sleeve and if I could broke every time, you had to put your hash in there and it had a little coil and all that. Like hitting one of those out of business one. Yeah, that was cool. Like that was like back then. That was taboo as could be, right? Like those guys weren't smoking joints on the course, certainly. Um, so so I think that has changed a lot than the past, but I do think it still existed in the past. But like you said, alcohol, drink carts, like, and that's still where the money's at for golf courses or just events too. It's hard to, we can't have sales of cannabis. We still have to have uh, well, I usually try to find a drink cart sponsor. Ideally, I don't make money off the drink carts, but like things like that, it's still prevalent. But I think cannabis and outside in that nature recreation, I think we've been there in the past as a plant people industry, but like it's more understood and common now that like yeah, I think just like consumption while golfing, so it's not as big of a deal, I guess.
Well, on top of that, you've also seen the normalization. Just last week, you saw Target and Minnesota start to carry them. I just saw today that Circle K and is also going to start to carry the drink. So it's not too far from the thought in the not too distant future that on the back nine there or at the ninth hole or wherever where they have the drinks, etc., that cannabis coolers and drinks like that could potentially become a realistic reality. Because yeah, I mean these clubs are private sometimes, and so they can set their own rules and regulations. But I know that's a whole other set of hierarchies to have to deal with that. But these types of normalizations will bring those types of people around and necessarily closer, to the reality of things. So, all right, next up will be Council Member Nate Landau. Council Member.
The question is, hosting in places like Ohio, California, Las Vegas, and New York, how do you adapt the tone and focus of your events to resonate with each regional's culture and regulatory landscape?
Yeah, man, it's a great question. You know, this industry, lots of sayings like build the plane as you fly or whatever, and all that kind of stuff. Like that's kind of how this has been for me, just like anything, especially in cannabis. Back to like, how do you stay ahead and know what the hell to do? It's like I don't know. You know what I mean? Like that's a tough one because like uh but try to understand what's the, especially you guys veterans, you know, there's a difference between the map and the terrain, right? So like understand the map the best you freaking can, because that's where you start and like you're not on the ground yet. And then if you can find boots on the ground that know the terrain, that's back to finding those partners and those experts. That's great, right? Like now we can land and expand. And like, but if you try to land without having anybody there, just reading the map, you're probably going to have some issues. So like that's been my big thing is like the Ohio one, I tried to find the local people that were uh, throwing great events, that were activists in the community. I had connections already. I had some national ones I hoped I could draw in. And like that created a perfect mix. Then Humboldt, we did a disc golf one. I had worked up there and licensed the farm and, you know, just love it. Um, just because, and it had a certain not nostalgia, but like a draw when I was younger. So like getting to go there was cool and getting to work there and camp there and all that. So like I wanted to do a disc golf, but I thought, or I wanted to do a tournament, but I thought disc golf would be better than golf. So Beaupre, right by the airport in Arcata, had like a dope disc golf course, and we worked it out, and it was so fun. Um, but that fit the vibe, right? And we did it in the evening, and then like we had like pre-rolls for every contestant, and we had like quarters for the winners, and we had Dr. Dabbers, and we had like, it was like a chill vibe, but like it still was a dope event. We had like uh I can't remember. I want to say like 80 disc golfers. It was a three-way tie at the end. The fog set in, and they had to throw their disc. You know, there's redwoods, and they had to throw them into the fog where they like disappeared. It was dope, dude. It was such a fun night. So like that was its own vibe, and I had known people there, and we had Talking Trees make the pre-rolls, and we had a couple local support like Royal Gold and Michael and them are awesome, and supporting, just getting the word out. So like stuff like that was huge, right? Um, and then Vegas. So I was like, all right, well now, you know, if you don't do it, you're not doing it. So like you got to at least try. So and then you guys will appreciate like it's this industry, like I'm hustling. So like the other logic was to get to Humboldt, I had to stop over in Vegas. Was a cheap route. So like I stopped in Vegas, I visited 5 golf courses, I went to Humboldt, I did visited it before we did it. And then on the way back, once we did it, closed the deal for the venue this September, and then launched the Vegas Classic for December to piggyback on MJ Biz. Because again, how am I going to do Vegas? Well, everybody goes to MJ Biz. There's not shit to do on Tuesday. You know, they got speakers. The show floor opens Wednesday. I think golf's enough of a draw to get people there. So I launched it, and I found the golf course right behind the convention center. I knew somebody there, and it worked out. And then also with the brain tumor, you know, we have a way in the door that doesn't necessarily make it all about cannabis. I think helps too with some of these venues. So anyway, I just kind of giving context on like each one finding that vibe in person and reason to be there and draw from really nice venue. Like for golf, I think that's crucial. Like you can't just go to any course, um, which takes a little bit of feeling there too, but I'm not a great golfer at all. But I've been around golf courses. So yeah, man, just all of that. And then setting the vibe for the for the location. So like Ohio needed education, needed speakers, needed the community to come build, needed the community to be built, let alone come together, solidify, I should say. I think more, and especially as you know, when Breck comes, it goes really quick. So anyway, that was the goal. Humboldt, just community and having the opportunity to be there. I was stoked. Vegas, that more hodgepodge of executives and everybody that comes to Vegas, and it had a great vibe, and it was a really good event. Um, and then we did Cali in Dana Point, but like kind of LA, right? And so I partnered with Mikey, who does nothing but fire, because he came out to Vegas and he was like, "Dude, we could do one in Cali." And I'm like, "Dude, I'm not trying to do one in Cali. Like, period. Like, I'm not that ballsy. I don't know that many people. I know it's going to be expensive. I'm not going to try to pull sponsorship dollars when there's so many events, blah, 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 blah. And he was like, no, we can do it. So we did it together and convinced me, and it was awesome. And it was like every hole was a party. Like Dime went all out and had like, high top tables with their logos in a bar, like a 5 tent setup. You walked in a bar, and Turpin Warehouse did gelato and white couches, and Top Shelf had PBR rolling hash holes by the ocean, and Planta had somebody giving out hash holes. Originals and Cure Company had DJs and models, and Jungle Boy set up a retail store, and Motley Terps did a Terp dab bar on the 1T, and like every single hole was a party. It was so fun. But that was the vibe, right? And it was like on the beach, like on Monarch Beach. The golf course went up to the water, and I had like 100 people just hanging out and like vibing. It was dope. And then in the evening, we had a helicopter ball drop for the raffle, and that's how we raised funds for the 50-50 raffle. One of the big ways we did that was cool, and it had a vibe, and like that whole thing was a Cali vibe in a way. And so then the Vegas again this year, we're getting ready to do. We'll have that feel and that classic venue and that Vegas again. So it's really just I think trying to find the right people, the right venue, the right reason to be there. And that's just to get people there, right? And then once you get them there, it's like now we got to pull it off and make it awesome. But we lean on the brands a lot to do that too. I always tell brands, like, make it dope, make it awesome, do like go all out. Like if you need a slight discount to do that and I can make it happen, I will, because like I want your team there, your best stuff. Like make it unique, because when they come up to you, hopefully you're getting executives and decision makers and you're getting their time, and there's 18 holes, and like grab their attention. Yeah, we really try to make it fun. And I think it's a give. It's everyone's hopefully winning in this, right? Like the brand's getting something good. The people who come are getting something good. The executives and them are getting the golf and something unique. They want time with business client or their team or whatever. So yeah, just trying to create the recipe in a good soup.
And that's a super recipe.
Thanks.
All right, Mike D, you're up next with our next question.
Yeah, that's definitely the VIP experience. And that kind of ties into this next question. And hospitality is definitely the cornerstone of your events. And that was definitely some top tier, hospitality, what we were just listening to. So what role do you think this premium experiences play in shaping how people perceive the cannabis industry?
Yeah, man. I hope it breaks barriers. Like that's what I see long term, and we gotta survive before we thrive, just like anything in cannabis, right? And we're getting there. And like I think if we thrive, if you will, it's what you just said. It's like Waste Management Open, or it's like any golf outing that's a tournament that's big, that has Red Bull and Amex and Rolex and whatever, like would be willing to activate at. But amongst that is well-known cannabis brands, hopefully, right? And maybe national brands, maybe local ones, having all of that mixed in, because if you're doing different venues, and right now we're an intrastate market, so it has to be, and there's MSOs and blah blah blah, but like it has to be insular in a way, right? Like it's hard to be a local and national player at the same time. I guess it isn't in anything, but I think once that somewhat breaks, and then in whatever form or factor that is, I guess beverages being an example in a way, but like once that kind of dissolves a little bit, or that opens up in the way that it does, I think it will invite more experience, more people to it. Again, back to that experience, meeting people where they're at. Like golf certainly is expanding its own horizons from all kinds of demographics right now. So like that's great for me, especially hopefully, and piggybacking on that, so is cannabis in a way, right? So like that combination should hopefully draw in, give me the opportunity and us the opportunity to draw in more people, raise more awareness, do more things, have more brands involved because they'll want to reach the bigger demographic, right? Like that's what they want, the numbers. And I'm learning that too, is like getting that ROI for them might not just be day of, it might be that data capture, it might be that brand awareness for whatever it is, new drop. Maybe it is that activation on the course. Maybe it is reaching those CEOs and buyers and decision makers. So again, I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm learning my way through a lot of that. But it's interesting to see, and I think that's a huge piece of it is that those barriers are being broken already in these two different things we're talking about of cannabis and golf, and that merging of them as they hopefully merge simultaneously. And I think the venues are huge for that too. It's like, hey man, what those companies are used to sponsoring? Shit at a golf course. Like that's right up their alley. So once we get there, hopefully we're something they think to do that with.
Right on. Next up will be Mary Lynn Mathery.
This one looks to kind of focus similar stuff. Over your career, you've witnessed cannabis evolve from the underground to mainstream. How do you view the current state of affairs in civil society fundraising within an industry-driven world?
That's a great question and point. I never thought we'd necessarily be here when I mean in ways good and in ways good, a lot bad probably, but like when in my active, my thought when I first started was like bring what you, and this is again when things like legalized, right? Started to like Colorado, Washington stuff, like post Cali originally, but you know what I mean, like around that time. And it was like bring what you got to the table, right? Um, Quality management and growing, but I obviously wasn't a grower, but like had knowledge in that and was what I could bring to the table. I think that what what we can bring and then what people are used to seeing and kind of meeting them again where they're at. So like the fundraising side, at least the first one I found, it was like I wasn't a hat in hand kind of guy or used to that, and it didn't get a lot of traction, right? Like people didn't really donate or do anything. And then I found like you got to ask, right? Obviously. So it was activations, it was on course activations, and it was like stuff in the clubhouse, like a silent auction or that raffle, right? Things like that helped engage and get more activity. But the civil side or like in the community, here we've partnered with the Cannabis Cincinnati Cannabis Minority Association, which is a nonprofit that does education in prisons and to youth and people about cannabis safety and use. And like that's a local one, but it's still in cannabis. And so, we're trying to figure that out really, like as a nonprofit, starting that up with the mission around the brain and health. And like my goal is literally to answer I don't know the answer to your question, I guess is what I should say. And like my goal is to figure that answer out because like I want to kind of the last tangent I was going on about the brands and everybody merging eventually is like same with the brain health, like obviously cannabis, endocannabinoid system, CB1, CB2 receptors, AG1 or what AG2, right? Or all that stuff that I know nothing about that scientists know a lot about. Like that is real and cool and works and like we don't know a lot about that. So I think that there's a merge that can happen there from just mental health awareness and brain tumor and like the brain itself from a nonprofit community standpoint to the science when cannabis gets if legitimately gets studied, understood, unlocked, if you will, to the masses, like in that form and factor. Uh, that would open that up a little bit more. But yeah, I don't know that answer, and I hope to find it. Is like, how do we blend that better from a nonprofit philanthropy awareness impact standpoint? I hope this is one of the ways.
Thank you.
It's a way, and thank you for trying. Michael Krawitz.
You just reminded me of something that I learned when I recently was down in St. Vincent. Had a big cannabis conference and kind of a mini summit, you might call it. There's like 6 different countries represented there. And one of the people that very unexpectedly um, came to meet and hear from was a expert in mycology. I guess you'd call it a mushroom expert.
Yeah.
And he's opening up a new plant there in St. Vincent where they're going to be producing what he lovingly calls magic mushrooms, psilocybin mushrooms. Evidently, in one facility, they'll have enough plant material to cover the medicinal research needs of planet Earth. He didn't realize he was going to be doing that much from one facility, but they're letting him do it. But anyway, he talked about, in the cannabis space, we of course found it fascinating, endlessly fascinating, and we're still just beginning to learn about what it means to have a molecule in a plant, cannabis, that mimics a molecule in our body, in our brain, in our central nervous system. And of course, I'm talking about the endocannabinoid receptor system. But we have evidently, according to him, like 3 other plant materials that have similar kind of mimicry. They're all mushrooms, and they're neurological brain tissue molecules. I can't remember the whole lecture, but it's fascinating. And this is part of our open process. So I'll take the moment here, since I mentioned it, to lay this on the table as a potential future roundtable for our Veterans Action Council. We'll have to try to see if we can't invite this person in to speak on this. But the reason why I bring it up is actually tangentially related to what you were just talking about, in that he was complaining about a lot of drug companies that will then find these molecules that are plant, molecules, and they will tweak them ever so slightly, add a hydrogen or add an oxygen. I have no idea what I'm saying. I'm mimicking what he
Yep.
said.
Yep.
And that would then allow them to put that on the market as a unique thing that they could patent. And that, in his opinion, those were wholly unsafe compared to the plant material. And again, let him speak for himself. But I found it very fascinating, and it seems to match up this sort of uh, malevolent side of industry. When you're talking about with regard to humans on Earth with medicinal needs. And I guess I'm throwing that at you as sort of a, like I said, part of our open thought process here, just to think about it. But also specifically, do you see that in some way, um, in any way, do you see that? Is that something that surfaces in your world that so far that you've seen, sort of differing missions, differing, sort of objective viewpoints of what's good and what's tolerable? I don't want you to reveal anything, untoward or anything, but just, a vibe I'm looking for here of if industry is hard to work with in that way, I guess is what I'm asking.
Oh man, yeah, I appreciate that question on a number of levels. And it is hard, man. It was like, oh man, there's so many ways to answer that too. And just like, I don't know, when there's an old my mom used to like Harry Chapin, and there's this old Harry Chapin song about this dude from Dayton, Ohio, actually, where I'm from. It's crazy. This song is about a dude from Dayton, Ohio. And he was a singer, right? And he gets this. Everyone tells him how he owns a dry cleaner. He's a singer, and he gets this gig in New York. Or sorry, everybody comes into the dry cleaning, and they're like, "You're so good. You should go to New York. You should try out," type of thing. And he goes and he gets this opening act in the night, and he thinks he kills it, and he gets this review, and it's like, how terrible he is, and he needs to go back to his small little podunk town, basically, right? And so nobody ever heard him sing in the laundromat again, except late at night, right? Type of thing. And you could faintly hear the sound of the opera singer and blah, 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 right? And the line in the song is, music was his life, it was not his livelihood. It made him feel so happy, and it made him feel so good. Oh, he sang with his heart, he sang with his soul. He did not know how well I'm saying, it just made him whole. That's, I think, the answer to your question is like that, in that when you do it because you love it, it's fun. And we used to make money doing it, and that was awesome. That was a byproduct of it. And it certainly was a motivation in some aspect to take so much risk. But it wasn't our life, and maybe it was your livelihood, but it was just different. And like when it becomes that like professional livelihood, which I got 5 kids, like I haven't figured this out, that's for sure. But like it's just different, man. And like even that first classic, it was like I got nothing to lose, dude. Like I don't care. These people don't like me anyway. Like I'm gonna figure this out. I will find. I don't have the money, but I'll find it. Like I'm gonna throw the best party, but it's also gonna be professional. And just made it up as I went, dude. Like just like yeah, we should have the county commissioner. We should have the state rep. We should have a women's panel. We should have, and it made sense though because of what the community needed and all of that. So I know I'm going on a tangent again, but like it's hard to keep that passion in little kidness. And I got a bunch of little kids, which helps keep me young for sure, right? Like at 5 kids, I get to, I'm a little kid at heart anyway, and I'm happy to be alive type of thing. So like, it's hard to keep that joy and excitement when you get beat down by this industry and you see the, just like you said, the malevolent, just money is even not even money, just like control and being right and like showing you can type of shit that has pervasively come into this. I mean, I guess it was always there in a certain way. But has shown its face more, is hard to deal with. And then to keep joy and excitement and you guys know better than I do. You've been through, yeah, crazy shit. But like, you know what I mean. And like that is hard. As an individual and an industry and a movement, all the things that we can go on and on about for everything. So like, I guess to answer directly, it's like, the passion's still there for a number of reasons. And I think that's always important for anything you do. But you gotta, money makes the world go round. Influence, power, money. Sorry, so I'm ethereal in some of those things in that like there are those entities and energies and things are like money is more than paper, right? Like power is more than like telling someone what to do, like influence. And so I think all of that is part of the game. Life's a game in a way too. This industry is definitely a game. There's definitely winners and losers. And like, so if you're going to play in that game, you have to, you've got to somewhat have a North Star or somewhat have a feeling of why and passion, but like, you also have to play the game. Like you've got to navigate it somehow. So yeah, it's hard to make something it's hard to make something that's your life, your livelihood. I'd say that's something. If a 20-year-old asked me, "Would you do it again?" It's like, we'll see. We'll see.
Right on. All right. Well, Michael, you got our final question. So, Michael Krawitz.
I guess I got to unmute myself. Thanks, Etienne. So this is a question that's sort of born out of our work. Veterans Action Council for several years now has been covering these international meetings of the drug control system. They happen in Vienna, Austria. They're called a Commission on Narcotic Drugs. And we've met veterans from all over the world, cannabis activists from all over the world, and actually have had some very interesting conversations with our own government because they're just walking the halls like any other government, when you're at the UN. But just speaking from that perspective, an international perspective, certainly you would know not to use the word football, right, in the wrong place in the wrong way, right? It means different things in different places. I don't know that golf does in any way. It seems to me it's pretty much an international language. But anyway, walk us through that. Like, the question is looking ahead. What's your vision for classic events with regard to expanding internationally or deepening the international footprint in the U.S.?
Yeah, dude, I appreciate that and love that question. And again, I think golf, you're right. Golf is golf. Like I don't know what you call it in that language, but like white ball, club, swing, like golf. So like it breaks barriers, but it does, and I do appreciate this, but I think you got to be able to take some arrows if you want to do what you want to do, right? So like, I do appreciate that it is, what's the word that I've heard multiple times, like exclusionary, but that's not the word. You know, the upper echelon doesn't want people in there type of stuff, right? And I think that's probably more true in some countries than others, right? We're definitely breaking the barrier here, but with the internet and social media, that pretty much is everywhere in some aspects, like at least from societal perception, younger especially. Anyway, my point being, there's huge opportunity out there to do that. I'd love to do it. I'm trying to nail it and scale it, and like I think we're getting ready to nail it here. You know, they're expensive. I'm trying to make them profitable each time. I'm trying to make them consistent. The other thing is I've launched this quick, right? Like I said, I went from Humboldt to Vegas last year from like September 1st to September 2nd to December 5th. Like made up the event and launched it in that time frame to go with MJ Biz. So there wasn't a lot of time. And like so I'm learning as I go. So I think as we nail this and we get people, I guess my other point is bringing in those sponsors and bringing in those means to pull it off is like, as we get more consistent flow, as we get more runway to get brands involved and they understand what we do and they see the impact we're making and they see that like, oh yeah, this is a hot event and it's more than golf. It's not just like a sticker on a golf cart and we're paying money for that. Like it's way more than that, right? And there's so much more involved. So like once we can get some of that understanding, and maybe some of those ancillary brands that are international especially would be helpful to get on board to go to a Mary Jane and do one in Germany. Like, yeah, we certainly talked about it like as a fun thing. I don't have it pulled off by any means. You know, I worked in Colombia. Would obviously love to go there and do one, but things are different. But like markets that want that, and like I know Japan, like golf's huge and CBD is huge. You know, the Philippines, there's like amazing courses I've heard. Like everywhere. There's nice courses everywhere. And they're not like back to the beginning of the conversation. They're not expecting cannabis companies necessarily, right? And the feedback we've heard from these are nice places we've gone, like you know, five diamond triple A Waldorf Astoria resort. Like that's where our Cali one was, and like they loved us. Like they said we were better than a lot of drunk crews that are out there, and like our money we paid them, and they were happy, right? Like that's a good result. Like so. I think people are also surprised when we do it. So like I would love to do more international, absolutely. We just got to get there, man. I'm just a dude right now, and we're getting there, but we're not quite there yet.
Well, you gotta just keep at it. All right.
Exactly.
Well, I can't thank you enough for taking the time with us today and sharing your story, your history as a patient, as well as navigating the system, as well as finding your way through the cannabis world, which you found a unique place and a way that can definitely help others. And we always appreciate those that step out of their comfort zone to help others. So can't thank you enough, James, for joining us and sharing your truths. I'd like to thank our council members who joined us tonight: Mike D, Mike Crowitz, Nate Landau, Marilyn Mathry, and myself, Etienne Fontaine. We'd like to thank Mr. James Keys for joining us for our VAC Roundtable number 48. So thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we'll be back in a couple more weeks. So thank you very much, everybody. Have a great night.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody.